What's up everybody? My name's Tony and I'm here today because I wanted to do a quick video on installing this new bypass filter from Insane Diesel on my own personal truck. It's a 2024 Silverado. It's got the 3-liter LZ0 Duramax. I looked on the internet, couldn't really find any good install videos on how people were mounting things and running the lines and whatnot. So I'm going to keep it simple and we'll go over what's in the kit. They supply some nice braided fuel line, a universal bracket that we have to determine where to mount. They've got some really nice fittings to go where the oil pressure sensor is. You attach the oil pressure sensor and run the line off of that. And then there's a couple really nice 90-degree fittings that go in the canister itself. And then a really cool custom cap with a 90-degree fitting that goes into that. So now we just have to determine how we want to place everything and start running lines. So let's do it. All right, so here we are on the underside of the vehicle, and I looked for places underneath the hood to mount this thing, and I kind of determined that I like the idea of mounting it, this would be the driver's side, underneath on this frame rail right here. And the reason being is I want the canister to be about at the same level as the oil pan. That way I feel like the oil level will be more accurate when I check it because gravity's not putting more oil back into the pan. Anyway, so I'm thinking about mounting it right here. And then I'm going to, up inside of there is where the oil pressure sensor is. And we're gonna unscrew that and put in the new fitting and run the line around and go right on top of this cross member. So I'm gonna come out and go down and go right on top of the cross member, up, and should connect it somewhere in this area right here. So real quick, a couple of the tools that we're going to need to install this kit, the way I am going to install it, is because you cannot get nuts on the back side of the hardware for the bracket, we're going to go ahead and drill a couple holes and install these nice rib nuts. And that requires a special tool to install them. And then also we have a proper cutter for the oil line and a nice little set of soft jaws to hold all the fittings as we tighten everything together. Okay, with the rib nuts installed, we are going to go ahead and put our bracket on. Okay, so we got our bracket installed and we retouched up the frame with some fresh undercoating, and now we're going to mount our canister. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're test fitting the canister on our bracket, and we are going to measure and cut the lines. You can see we have the fittings installed and pointed in the direction that we're going to run. Up here, this one back here is going to be the one that goes up to the cap. This one right here is going to come from the oil pressure sensor, and that's the one that we're going to run right alongside the cross member right here and up inside of there. One thing that I did when I marked the holes for the bracket is I made sure that the bracket was level with the frame, and then you can level it this way with the cross member, and that way your canister is sitting nice and square in there. The other reason that I decided to mount it on the frame, other than the fact that I wanted the oil low like the pan, is it's easy access, and I didn't want to be making a mess inside of the engine compartment. And this way it seems like it's pretty easy just to undo this, pop out a new filter. When you're doing the regular oil filter, And that way, if there's a mess, everything would just go on the ground. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and install the cap assembly, and we're going to run our line around, figure out where we want to attach it. And we're gonna run it right through this area right down here, down to the canister, the best that we can, and we'll attach it to some of the other stuff with zip ties, but we'll make it all look clean. Just a quick note, some of the couple other things that I put on this truck. Right now it has 15,000 miles, and at about 2,000 miles, I put this VSE catch can, did the install on that, and I check it about every 2,000 or 3,000 miles, and you really get a lot of blow by coming from the crankcase on that. It's a really good thing to put on. Saves running all that residual oil through the back of your turbo, saves your intercooler, which is under this cover, and if it got past that, it goes down into this tube right here and into your throttle body, so keeps all the oil out of that. Really something I think it's necessary that you put on to get a little more life out of this thing. With this canister, hopefully this thing will last forever. We assembled the cap. I test fit the line and installed this other end, which goes into the canister. Now on my truck, the way I have the canister mounted, the length of this first oil line is approximately 59.5 inches. Don't take my word for it. You probably want to, if you mount it the same way, you want to check your own situation depending on if you mounted the canister in exactly the same spot or not. But this actually gives a little bit of slack, and 59.5 seems like a pretty good length. Also wanted to mention one other thing. When you are assembling all these little components together and you cut these lines and get everything ready and put together, at the end you want to make sure and blow compressed air through these holes, just in case there happens to be any little debris of some sort, either from the fitting or from when you cut the line. Any kind of fuzz, little metal shavings from the braiding. It's just a good thing to do, is to blow everything out with compressed air. And I'm also going to take the canister apart and do the same thing when I do the final assembly, to make sure that there's no debris in there from when it was manufactured. Here I'm going to show you what the top line looks like all installed. It's attached to the cap, and I have it running straight down through here. And on the side of the air box, there's a little tab, and I attached a nice little Adele clamp, and it's hard to see down there, but it runs just right alongside of the steering shaft. And then there's a zip tie holding it right there. So on the top of the filter, where it goes to the cap, I've got it running out, and that's where it goes up inside of there. Let's see if I can get, I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's kind of a little hole that it just fits and it doesn't hit anything. Here we are. We've got the second line, ran it through, measured it, made the line. Now this one ends up being approximately 48 inches long. That is the length that the hose was cut. Then everything was attached, and I already drained the oil. Just so you know, this drain plug gets torqued to 18 foot-pounds. That gets snugged up. Now this is what the T-fitting looks like up in here. This was not easy to get in here. So what you actually have to do is, behind there's a brass fitting. Now to screw the T-fitting on, you need to remove the oil temperature sensor. That is the brass plug just in front of the oil temperature sensor that is what the T screws into. So the torque spec on the oil pressure sensor, according to GM, the oil temperature sensor is 15 foot-pounds, and the oil pressure sensor is 26 foot-pounds. So I used a crow's foot on the back side, a 3/8 drive, and was able to torque the T-fitting to the block to 26 foot-pounds. On the other side, we have our AN fitting for the hose. I pre-assembled that before I screwed the whole fitting in. And then here is the replacement position for the oil pressure sensor. This clip, it's a little bit tight, the wires, but not bad. There's some wiggle room. Getting this clip off was kind of a challenge. You have to pull the gray part of the clip back and then squeeze down really hard on the end of it to get the mechanism inside of the clip to release off of the sensor body. Be careful when doing all of that stuff. So now all that needs to be done is to connect this line, run it where we had already pre-measured it, and connect it to this AN fitting here. Here is what we look like underneath after doing our final install. We've got our canister mounted to the frame with riv nuts. We've got the fittings up top, and they come out and go down. I went ahead and zip tied the line to this little spot here. There's a little hole. There's also another little hole on this side. The line runs right over the top of the cross member, up, does a nice lazy loop, making sure to stay away from anything that's moving or hot, and comes right up there to our AN fitting on our T. And there's our T right up in there. Again, everything is super tight, and you do have to take that brass fitting off. It's the only way that you can get it in. And everything does clear the frame, the engine mount, or that could be an exhaust bracket maybe. But everything looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I could have shortened up that line maybe just a little bit. I'm not too worried about it just barely touching the frame. I may go back and add maybe a rubber hose around it just to kind of help, you know, anything that wears. But for the most part, that is our install underneath of the truck, doing a frame mounted canister underneath the driver's side. And I'm really happy with the results. About ready to put some oil in it and fire it up. Here we go. All finished. 2024 Silverado, the 3-liter Duramax LZ0 with the Insane Diesel bypass filter kit. Got it off the lift, put 7 quarts of oil in it, ran it until it started coming out the cap, added another quart, which makes 8, and we are good to go. Quick look under the hood. See the line coming down, nice and clean. Good to go. Hope you enjoyed my video, and stay tuned for some more to come.